in the fall of 1962. A coach by the name of Forrest Sherritt, nicknamed Trees, came to DeSales from Rosary High School. After 2 seasons, and after being faced with the task of competing primarily with a group of underclassmen, the Stallions emerged in 1964, earning a share of the Central Catholic League Championship by tying Bishop Watterson 8-8. It wasn't until the 1968 season that DeSales captured the outright CCL title. The captain of that '68 team was Tony Pusateri, and nearly a decade later, he took over as head coach of his alma mater.
Then he called me down and he said, "Hey, listen, I'd like you to be the head football coach." Are you kidding me? I mean, like, I remember what I did. I went down to the chapel, you know, and that's, the first thing I did is went down to the chapel, got excited, called my dad, and I was just in heaven. And then when I went to bed that night, I said, "Oh my, I'm the head football coach at DeSales. I don't know if I can do this." But it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I was always in awe of Tony's ability to motivate people. If it was a fellow teacher, a coach, one of his players, one of the kids in his phys ed classes or his health classes, he did an excellent job of motivating people.
The thing about Tony is he's totally disciplined, so he's always organized. He knows his players inside and out, and he's intense. And he does all this. I don't think I've ever heard Tony say a swear word ever, even in private. So, the guy is just, his integrity level is just heads and shoulders above everybody.
For me personally, he was the guy that I always counted on everything he ever said. His opinion meant everything to me. And I think he got kids to play hard, he got players to do anything that he wanted them to do 100%. And he was always believable. And I think, me as a coach now, I kind of look back on that and I think, man, that was, kind of whether he meant to be that or that's just was the way he was kind of a magical thing. And that's something that I kind of try to emulate as I've gotten into coaching myself. And it's become very important. It's definitely the way to coach kids and high school players in particular, because if you can get them to believe in what you're doing and you can get them literally to run through the wall for you, then you've got a chance to be pretty good no matter your talent level.
He expected the best out of you, but he also knew he had the confidence in you to get there. And that's just the way his family is. I think he continues that day. He's always positive. And so losing wasn't an option.
From 1969 to 1976, the Stallions were not devoid of talent, going 47-29. However, when it came to Bishop Watterson, DeSales had lost 8 straight. Heading into his first season as head coach, Pusateri's challenge was not only to end that streak to the Eagles, but he was inheriting a squad that was working with their 3rd head coach.
So Mr. Sherritt was the coach when they were freshmen. Coach Walbacher was their coach their sophomore and junior year. Then I come in their senior year. And they were good football players, great deal, they all stayed. They could have very easily just said, whatever. They were the best guys to work with. They were the hardest working guys. They did everything we asked. And they kind of set that foundation that the next class, the 78 class, could build on.
When we first met Tony, we were sophomores, and he talked about setting the standard for DeSales football and making an imprint, both at that time as sophomores JV and for the future. And so every team that we faced, he said, we want to take these guys now and set the standard for future teams, including when we were going to be seniors. And he talked a lot about our senior season when we were sophomores.
We worked out together as a team, pushed each other. And most of us, like I said, we played ball together growing up. So we knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. And it was an exciting time to be, DeSales. It really was.
Coach Pooh was a motivator. He was only maybe 9, 10 years older than us, so we looked up to him as an idol, somebody who played here. He Watterson the last time. He didn't let us forget that. But our attitude was a senior senior-led team. I think there were maybe 15 or so seniors. We had a lot of contribution from juniors, Phil Callahan, Frank Borges, Bob Yesselstein, Eric Holloman. But the senior group had been together so long, we knew each other. And that senior class, we just hated to lose. Didn't want to lose. We wouldn't elect each other captain. Everybody thought they could do a good job at it.
Most of the guys that were seniors in that year that we beat Watterson, we tied them in freshman year, beat them sophomore year. We lost to them junior year, and it was payback time. So, I mean, that was Cooper Stadium. That was big time.
They were not going to lose to Watterson their senior year. There's no other way I can say it. All you guys out there that are athletes who play football, you know what I'm talking about. They were not going to lose to Watterson, and they all felt that way. And they had a guy named Guido coaching the defense, and I didn't have to even worry about that. They probably thought Watterson wasn't going to score, let alone lose.
Coach Guido was a strategist. He prepared us to the extent that in every game that we stepped into, we knew exactly what that other team was going to do. And so we were able to stop almost every scheme, every encounter that we were faced with our opposing teams.
Yeah, we had the utmost confidence in Coach Guido. He put us together as a group, and whatever scheme he called, whatever play he called, we ran it all the way out, and always had confidence that he was making the right call and gave us the confidence to make the plays.
Well, Guido was my defensive coach, and anybody that's ever played defense with Guido says that he's my coach, and that's just kind of the way people feel about him. I think every player, every single player that's ever played defense, and even guys that didn't play defense, they would literally give their right arm for that man. And he's just a special guy. He's very unique. Every player loves him. You play hard for him because you know his heart is in the right place, and the message he was always sending was the right one, and that was to be tough, to be physical and aggressive, and just to play football the way the sales players are supposed to play. And that was always the thing we took with us. And although small in stature, you were very intimidated of him and knew that at any point he was going to maybe throw a right cross at you and get your attention, kind of wake you up that way.
He scared the crap out of me. I'm not kidding at first. I mean, you looked at him and immediately thought, I'm not going to mess with this guy, and nobody ever did. But deep down, he has a great heart, and he's a great coach. He knew defense as well as anybody that I ever knew, and he had a certain, kind of like Coach Pusateri, he had a game plan in mind for Watterson or whatever team that we played. Really enjoyed playing for Coach Ricevuto.
I've known Guido for many years. I've always admired Guido because I felt that he was a wealth of knowledge in athletics. In the early years, watching Guido interact with our football staff was fun because Guido was the old sage, and he was old school about his outlooks on athletics and kids and their commitment to athletics. And I liked the way he handled the kids. It was a definite father image with our coaches and our players. And Guido was always a calming effect. He could get fired up, no doubt about it. And it was always fun to listen to him, get a little bit riled up with some of the other coaches, which some of them were Italian. And he proved the adage that if you get two Italians in a room, there are three opinions. There was no doubt about it with Guido and some of the guys that he coached with. But it was always fun to watch Guido in action. I think he was most respected by the kids, and now watching him generations later play the same role is just so heartwarming for me.
Well, having a guy like Guido around is just an incredible experience. When you think about tradition in high school football and the fact that there's really nobody any more impressive over the course of time than DeSales. And not only do we get to hear about the tradition, but we actually get to live it with Guido being with us every single day. He's really one of the true originals, one of the guys here in the late 60s who helped get this whole thing started. The fact that it's 2014 and he's still with us and still coaching, it's really a special thing for us.
This sounds kind of corny, but I'm talking about back in the 70s. Now, he knew that it wasn't all about football. That the kids loved to sit around and talk with Guido about anything. And they trusted him. And I'm going to tell you, you talked about shutouts at Guido, and I know he's got a plaque in his house. If you can see it, it's awesome. But it's got Guido, says we couldn't do it without you. It's got every shutout that he ever pitched in sales. And you don't do that if you don't trust your coach. You have to trust your coach. His players started at St. Augustine up till today, even at the sales, they would run across the country for Guido. And you can't buy that. You can't manufacture it or fake it. Guys wanted to play for Guido. That's all there was to it. And they would do whatever they had to do to please Guido. And they would hang on every word he said. And that was our defensive coordinator. I never had to worry about it. I never had to worry about the defense when Guido was the defensive coordinator.
In that 1978 game against Bishop Watterson, the Stallions' defense held the Eagles to 7 points. And thanks to a late field goal by Roy Burrell, under the guidance of Guido Ricevuto, his position coach, the Sales beat Watterson 10-7. The Stallions would defeat the Eagles again in 1979, which led many to believe that a rivalry had truly been born.
We knew going into the season that that was going to be a make-or-break game for our season and for what we did for 4 years at Sales. And I think everybody on our team from grade school on knew that St. Andrews was part of that Watterson community, and being able to meet that expectation and beat the Eagles our senior year was an awesome experience for us.
I think that people knew we were for real. That, we were so close for so many years. We were on the cusp of having a really good football program that people recognized the Sales. But when we started going nose to nose and taking Watterson on and showing that we could beat Watterson, which was a peer of ours, that I think people took our program very seriously, and it generated a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. It made kids want to play for the Sales because of the tremendous rivalry that took place. The community got behind us, the parents, the alums. It was just a tremendous atmosphere to play Watterson on a Friday night. It was the USC Notre Dame of Columbus. It was a great rivalry, and I think all of Columbus look forward to that.
They always thought they were heat, but we proved them wrong. And I think after that, it just too bad for Watterson. It's an inbred thing. We all hate Watterson.
Watterson, rich in tradition, football rich, they were always good. I mean, always good. And it seemed like they were always bigger than us. We were a team that, I think our biggest guy was 180 pounds. And I'm not kidding, that was our senior year. We had a bunch of guys that were just loved to play football. And especially if we Watterson game, that was the one that the whole school got into it. I mean, and Coach Pusateri made it a big deal. It was a big deal at the pep rally. It was a big deal for the whole week. It was a big deal for the walkthrough. It was a big deal for the game. And, you kind of got, goosebumps as a player. I did. I loved it.
From 1977 to 1985, Tony Pusateri coached the Stallions in 94 games. Of those 94 games, the Stallion defense limited the opposition to 10 points or less 63 times, including 34 shutouts. Throughout his tenure at DeSales, Coach Pusateri and his defensive staffs allowed an average of 8 points per game. In no other season was the defense more prominent than in 1985.
Our junior year, that spring, we had a meeting in the little theater, and it was everybody that was coming back. And he got us all in there, 60 or 70 of us, and he said, I want us to set our goals for 1985, and I want us to think about being champions and what it's going to take to be a champion. And he goes, I want you guys to look around and see who's there, who's beside you, because these are your teammates, these are going to help you, get to the goal. So we looked around, and I can tell you none of us were impressed. We were coming off a 6-4 season, but I think for a lot of us, he taught us about the power of positive thinking, positive mental attitude. And if we worked harder than anybody in the state, if we had more discipline than anybody in the state, then why not us? We would be working in the weight room and he would just come up in our ear saying, no one's gonna stop me. No one's gonna stop me. No one's gonna stop me. Now you say it. And so he kind of got a lot of people thinking maybe like they never had before with respect to just positive thought.
Well, I think the thing that made it most special is the fact that we all had each other's back. And what I mean by that is not only did we commit to each other and the team, we looked out for each other. But not just on the field, but out in public, whether we're out and about with friends or representing our school out at the grocery store on the weekends. We made sure that we did the right thing, stayed on the path, and once we established that, it was hard to stop the momentum we started for that season. And I would say the thing that made it so special to get back to was the fact that we looked out for each other all throughout those 14 weeks of that season.
The teams we were going against were, every one of them were bigger and stronger and faster. And they would have 3 or 4 or 5 Division I full ride guys. But we just kind of never gave up and never let go. And we were in better shape than everybody. And we worked harder and we just had mental toughness and positive thought. We were like, hey, why not?
They just had this burning desire to win, and they had a toughness about them that really maybe hasn't been matched since they've been there.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, and I've told this before. I said to my wife, I said, gosh, we're going to be pretty good. And I said, I think next year that we're going to win the state. And she goes, what do you think this year? I said, I think we've got a chance to make the playoffs. We've never made the playoffs before at DeSales. And I thought, next year, boy, we can be really good. And I think I might have made a mistake of telling Johnny Dennis that. That Johnny, we have to have a really good year because I think we can win the state next year. Well, if anybody knows Johnny Dennis or Jamie Kua or Mike Gasbeck, we were ready to play Waterson. And my wife said, what do you think? And I said, I'm going to make this prediction. If we beat Waterson, we will win 14 games and win the state. I'm just telling you. And she goes, what? She goes, we've never even been to the playoffs. And I said, I've looked at the scores from all of the state. Waterson's one of the best teams. They're really good. We're pretty good. If we beat them, nobody will beat us. And so it started off thinking like, we're going to be pretty good and get to the state for the first time. And then maybe next year, you know? And it happened a year earlier.
The kids that year brought together the entire sales community. I'll never forget watching people file into Ohio Stadium for that game. And there were alums I haven't seen for a long time. There were guys that were there in tattered and dirty leather jackets, things that didn't fit them anymore, but they were so proud to have the opportunity to get back to sales in a state championship game.
The team chemistry was incredible. We weren't big, but we were fast and they were tough. We had good athletes in almost every position. We weren't necessarily big on the offensive line, pretty small to be honest with you, but they were quick. Good skill positions, good running game, defensively maybe one of the best sales has ever had because they were fast in every spot. But I think probably more than anything, their confidence level, each and every game we won. But by the time we went into the playoffs and into the state finals, our confidence level was incredibly high. And just team chemistry and unity somehow, I think we kind of stumbled upon that for whatever reason. And really kind of parlayed into a state championship, and then the next year, we didn't lose a game in '86, and in '87, they won most of the games at that point as well. And it just kind of led into bigger and better things, in my opinion.
I think the winning the state championship was a big staple mark for the school. I mean, there had already been some established programs in wrestling and some others prior to that, but I think from the football aspect of it, it kind of opened up some horizons that were able, and the school capitalized on in the future. Again, I think the camaraderie that was built from that team kind of carried over to some other classes as well. So I think it was a kickstart. It was a great time in the school's history, and I was just happy to be a part of it.
After that, the mindset changed and expectations were changed. And so then it became, if you're going to put on a purple and white jersey, The expectations are that you're going to work harder than anybody, you're going to have more discipline, you're going to work better as a team, and your goal is to compete for a state championship.
Well, Tony would say that Tree Sherrick was probably his greatest influence, and he was the first coach at DeSales, and there's a saying, I think it's still in the locker room, that says that a team with a past is a team with a future. And we always had tough kids and everything, but when that 85 team came along and finally won it all, they set the bar for everybody down the road. And I don't think a lot of the success that we had while I was there would have been possible without that 85 team. So it was just a standard that everybody felt they had to measure up to from that point forward.
That game in '85 set the tone for us to do some things at DeSales that we didn't think would be possible. Primarily, we always wanted to have a stadium in DeSales because we were tired of being nomads and traveling across the street or up the street to play our games or play on Saturday nights. So we wanted to have the luxury of playing on a Friday night. And it was so easy to rally DeSales followers, parents, alums, just friends of the high school to put up Alumni Stadium in 1985, 86, and to dedicate it in 88 with very little effort. People really stepped up. We had no debts with that stadium, and we're very proud we were able to do that. And there's no doubt in my mind that that 85 championship team was the impetus for all that.
Coach Pusateri came and talked with our football team in 2009, and that was a very special year. We won the CCL championship and won the regional championship, and then went on and played in the state championship game, ended up state runner-up that year. Coach Pusateri spoke to our team about midway through that season. I thought his message was tremendous, and it's really neat for our guys to hear from a person like that. One of the people who started it all as a player, continued as a coach, and just one of the true great football people in Central Ohio.
I always loved football. I had great coaches in high school, and I coached a couple places before I came to DeSales, but just how to do it the right way, in the Catholic tradition, with your faith kind of out there in front. I mean, that's what I learned from Tony, and also the X's and O's. Tony's a master of that, and keeping things simple, keeping things simple is important for your players to get the most out of them.
I think if you ask his players that played years ago to this day, the influence that he had on them, I think there's probably something that all of us would say that we have in common with each other. And I know a lot of people go back and ask his opinion now, while we're fathers, while we're older now, and we'll go back and ask him what he thinks about certain things. So I think that kind of answers the question as far as what kind of influence Tony had on his players. And I mean, so much now that even though you might be, having kids that are in college, you go back, at least I do, you go back and ask him what he thinks. And as I always told people, his opinion, he's not always right, but he's right 99.9% of the time. But he always gives you the feeling that maybe it was what you thought all along, or that it was your idea. And then you come to the realization that it was really him that was telling you what to do. You just had to figure it out on your own.
To this day, Coach Pusateri and Coach Ricevuto's impact on the St. Francis DeSales football program is immeasurable. They helped lay the foundation to create one of the most successful programs in the state of Ohio, one full of
tradition.
Tradition.
Tradition. Tradition.
Tradition. Tradition.
Tradition.
Tradition.
Coach Guido Ricevuto coached at St. Augustine from 1963 to 1967. He coached at DeSales from 1968 through 1983, Jonathan Alder from 1985 through 1987, Westerville South from 1988 to 1990, Otterbein College from 1991 through 1996, Reynoldsburg from 1997 through 2001, Dublin Kaufman from 2002 to 2006, and he's been back home here at DeSales since 2007. That's a lot of math to do in your head. But this season, coming up, 2014, and Coach, I'm not sure if you're aware of this marks Coach Guido's 50th season coaching football in Central Ohio. Coach Guido has a ton of stories. He's done a lot in his life. Some people may or may not know he's actually a former Golden Gloves boxer. He actually fought on TV, but the funny thing I've been told is that's before even people had TVs in their houses. So not a lot of people even knew that. I would say that most of his players are definitely aware of his boxing skills, and at least those that have played for him have asked him. Have asked me. I was talking with a person last year. It was a game day. I don't remember exactly which week, but it was a Friday afternoon, and this guy had played for Coach Guido back in the 70s. And he said, "Coach, you don't understand it. When things would go bad, or maybe you'd mess up or you do something stupid, he just hit you right in the head. You didn't even know it was coming. It happened so fast." He goes, it just whacked. All of a sudden you're hitting the head. You didn't even know it was happening. And he goes, "You know, I've often wondered how that would go over today." And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you right now that obviously things have changed, and obviously that doesn't go over very well today. But I don't think Coach Guido got that message because he hit our kicker last night in pregame." And that's a true story. Coach Pusateri, or Coach Guido Ricevuto has had the opportunity to coach his son, his nephew, and also his grandson most recently. He's a wealth of knowledge. I think sometimes on Fridays when we play away, in particular a long road trip, I'm the luckiest guy in the program because he rides the bus and sits right next to me. We've had a lot of great talks, and I've learned a lot from Guido, not only about football, but about a lot of other things. And I want to congratulate Coach Guido on being honored tonight. Coach Tony Pusateri graduated from DeSales in 1969. He was a senior captain on the 1968 football team. He played football at Capital from 1969 to 1972. He coached 2 years as an assistant at Liberty Union in 1973 and 1974, and then came back home to DeSales as an assistant to then head coach Tom Wildbacher in 1976. He became the head football coach at DeSales in 1997 and was the coach through 1985. He also coached as the head coach at Westerville South from 1986 through 1990, at Bowling Green from 1991 through 1996, at Reynoldsburg from 1997 through 2001, and he's been the athletic director at Kaufman from 2004 and still is today. He led DeSales to its first ever playoff in 1985, a season in which we went 14-0 and won the Division III state championship. That was the very first team in Ohio to achieve a 14-0 record. He's helped mentor a lot of great coaches and a lot of great players. And on June 20th, 2014, Coach Pusateri was inducted into the Ohio High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame. It is my honor to introduce two great DeSales men. Please join me in welcoming Coach Guido Ricevuto and Coach Tony Pusateri.
Guido said he'll sit with me, but I got to talk, so I'll talk. This is awesome. You know, before I go, my Uncle Johnny passed away just recently. And just remember this till the end of the talk here. Over at St. Matthias, and there was a song. It was June 25th or so, and I forget the exact song, but it said, "Who should I send?" And then someplace in the song it says, "Here I am." remember that for later on when we go to talk. When I was up here listening, I have to say something about Dan Garrett. This is my 41st year in education. So 41 years I've been in teaching and coaching and all around student athletes. And it is very hard to run a high school. It might be the hardest job. We talk about it all the time, Mark and I. It might be harder than the football coach, the athletic director, the superintendent of schools to be the principal of a high school. Now you're the principal of a Catholic high school, where people are getting on a little bit of Christians nowadays and get on Catholics, and you got to pay tuition, but you got to pay taxes where you live, and it's so hard. And I'm looking at the statistics, and I think enrollment keeps going up from 11 to 12, to 13 to 14. The graduates are now 15 and 16. I think the enrollment's higher than it has been for a while. And I look at the AP classes and the scholarships that the kid get. If somebody asks me about athletics, as the athletic director, I always kind of explain it like this. They said, well, sports are important, and football's important, athletics is important. And I said, here's the way I look at it. You take one of those nice big houses over there in Westerville or Muirfield or Tartan Field or something like that. The athletic program is the front porch. When you're driving down the street, you see that real nice front porch and you see what it looks like. You say, man, that's really nice. Look, they got all those things hanging up and brick and all that. But the house is what's important. And the school is what's important. The athletic department is the front porch, which brings people in, and our athletic department brings people in, but the school keeps them in. And people don't keep, parents, and I think Mark talked about it in the video, we talk about our kids all the time. I would say if Mark came into my office 10 times a month, 5 times we're talking about one of our kids. Parents aren't going to turn over their somebody to somebody if they don't trust you. It's a lot of money to go to school nowadays. And they want you to be raised in a Catholic atmosphere, a Catholic environment, and they want to get a good education. I have to take my hat off to Dan Garrett. I think there's only been 5 principals here since the 60s. So if I could, just a round of applause for our principal here. And then, before I say something here, Ryan Wiggins, and I told him, I said, I probably won't get to say much about you because we're going to get going here. But guys, I guess the best compliment now, remember I played here and I coached here and we won a lot of games and I played with a lot of good players. I would like to play for your football coach. I would like to play for your football coach, and I think those guys you saw on the screen up there, the Simonellos and the Azbeks and the Cuas, those guys that you saw, Salih, those guys would like to play for your coach. We talked about Coach Jacoby and myself and Coach Guido. He's right there. Why would he take time? This is the busiest time of the year. I know him and Coach Crabtree are busy every day, every night. And he says this tradition is important. You guys are playing for a guy that very easily could be in there right now. So, Coach, first of all, thank you for inviting me here tonight. Thank you for everything you do for DeSales football. I appreciate it. Guido said he's going to stand up the whole time, so he said, don't talk long. So I won't talk long, because he will give you a left cross, I promise you. I've been there before. Anybody in this room, Johnny Hassey's in this room, and a lot of the players are in this room that played football for DeSales. Brian Harrison, I think you saw him, Guido. Any one of those guys could be up here talking. And my whole talk tonight is directed to you guys in these purple and white jerseys. Any one of those guys could tell you a story and how this thing started, and I got to be the lucky one. And let me just tell you, the rest of the talk is going to be you guys in the purple. And here's what I want to do. And I asked Coach Wiggins if I could do this, and this is going to take 30 seconds. That's all I want you to take. I want you guys in the jerseys that are on the team, you're going to take your chair, and I'm going to ask the football players to stand up here in a second who played here. So there's Chris Cordy, and there's Andy, and there's Simonello, and all those guys, Herb Jones. I want you guys to take a chair and go sit next to one of those guys. Like right now, there's Coach Crabtree. You sit next to Coach Crabtree. So you guys that played football here for DeSales, stand up, and you guys go sit next to them the rest of this meeting here real quick. Let's go. You go sit next to them, one of those, and introduce yourself to him.
Andrew, come on up here. Sit next to one of the guys who played football for DeSales and introduce yourself to him. Everybody got somebody?
Should I go run around?
Okay, now, thank you. Andrew Barber's my player. Make sure you introduce him. If you want to tell him what year you played, what position you played, that's okay with me. Go right ahead. Who's sitting next to Jamie Hewitt? Where's Jamie? Good. Good. I wanted to see who was sitting with your son. Andrew Barber's the guy that's going to be sitting next to me. He's going to go right back down there and sit when we're done. But listen what he's going to read for me. I'm talking to the football players now. He's going to read this to me for me, and you have to listen to what he says, because this is what my whole talk is about. Go ahead, Andrew. Take your time. Speak right in.
I'm convinced that there's no more dangerous or delusional myth than that of a self-made man or woman. No one is now or has ever been self-made. Whenever we stand tall, and you are all standing tall today, it's because we are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are the recipients of a wonderful grace, and I pray that you pass it on.
What position you play? All right, offensive tackle. He said that's too bad, he's a defensive coach. Nobody's a self-made man, we're all standing on the shoulders. And I like this one line here, and you're all standing tall today. Every one of this room, we're back together with DeSales football. I'm a player. These guys are all players. We're all standing tall. Everybody else is doing something else now, and at the end of July, whatever it's doing, going on vacation or whatever they're doing, and we're here together. And we're sitting next to each other, and we're meeting new guys. I guarantee you that some of these football players are going to watch for number 54, or 78, or 33, whoever it was. This is something really big. Let me tell you how it started. Football players, listen now. You've honored me to be up here, so you're going to hear it from my point of view. And so I'm in 7th or 8th grade at St. James, and my dad, who's sitting right here, Dad says, come on, we're getting in the car, we're going to go down to see Brookhaven scrimmage Watterson. And I said, what? It's about middle of August. And I said, I'm in 8th grade, I think. And we're going to go see Brookhaven scrimmage Watterson. I said, why are we going to see Brookhaven scrimmage Watterson? I didn't even play football, because at St. James, I think the weight limit was, I forget what it was, but I was 100 pounds over the weight limit, so I couldn't play. So I didn't play. And so he says, we got to go down here because these are the two best teams in the state of Ohio, and two of the toughest teams in the state of Ohio, and two of the best coaches, Anderson and Dick Walker, was for Watterson. I said, okay, let's go. So we get in the car, drive down Carl Road, we go back there, and we watch this scrimmage. And they were the biggest, toughest, meanest guys I have ever seen. Johnny Hassey's here someplace. Johnny played against those guys. That was, the coaches said every cuss word in the book. It was just kicking guys and hitting guys. Guido would have fit in good with that group right there. And I believe, honestly, we got in the car and we left, and Dad said, what'd you think? I said, I'm going out for the band at DeSales. Dad, I guarantee you, I'm not playing football. It was nuts. I mean, they were crazy at that game. So then I'm in 8th grade, and I can't play, and I don't think Izzy Volpe's here, and we all know Izzy. And I'll never forget this. Here I am, I'm a coach, and Ryan said some nice things in the Hall of Fame, and I'm here at DeSales, and we coach the state championship team, and Izzy said, you're going to be my coach. You're going to help coach St. James this year. So I'm in 8th grade, 13 or 14, whatever I was, years old, and I was the coach at St. James, the assistant coach at St. James. What does that thing say on there? It says somebody helped you along the way. You are not self-made. Now, I'm here, and Izzy Volpe kind of started. I guess Dad started bringing me to that game, but he almost got me quit, but he got me to that game. And then Izzy Volpe says, you're going to be a coach. And then the funniest thing happened. I get to DeSales. The next year I'm at DeSales, and I'm a freshman. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't do this. I can't play what I saw. And then I saw these guys walking around the locker room. I saw Mike DeSantis and Tom Rock and Linky and John Gauss and Skippy DeSantis and the Fickles, Hasties. And I thought, whoa, and then my class, you know, Nick Valentine and Christoph, my brother played on the team, Gary DeCaro. And I saw the way they practiced, and I saw the way they were all about the sales. And I thought, well, you know, I'm in the ballpark with these guys, and they taught me what it was like, Andrew, to wear purple and white. I didn't know. I didn't even play football. But all of a sudden, I felt, oh man, I play football for DeSales. I can't explain what it was, but I played football for DeSales in my 8th grade year. You guys got to listen to this because this is actually how it happened. And then I was lucky enough to be this is later on, but I have to tell you this because I was the captain of Capital University's football team, and Coach Slaughter was my coach who had just come from Ohio State. And I got to sit with him one day. It was just me and him talking in his office, and Coach Slaughter said, you know that Tree Sherrick was your high school coach? I said, yep. Mr. Sherrick was my coach, and he says, let me tell you a story about Mr. Sherrick. He said, about that time, Pat and Dan, you got to help me. DeSales and Hartley and Reedy, I think, were all opening at about the same time in the 60s. And Coach Slaughter said, Tony, Tree Sherrick, I think he had his pick of the jobs, Hartley, Reedy, or DeSales, or I think that he was going to pick one of the schools, or somebody had offered him a job. I don't know how that whole went, but Mr. Sherrick got in Coach Slaughter's car, and they drove. And they knew the east side because Coach Slaughter was at Cap already. Coach Sherrick was at Rosary. They went out to the west side. And then they drove down by St. Augustine and St. Gabriel, and then they came down by St. James, and my coach, Coach Slaughter, said, Trees, stop right here. Here's where you got to coach. Where are these kids going to go to school? He said, DeSales. He says, you coach these kids. He says, look at the families. Look at the people that work. They're produce men. They're construction guys. They work on the railroad. They're tough, and they got families, and the moms are there working. He said, Trees, you got to coach these guys. And, you know, the rest was history, and that's what happened. So I get to DeSales, and not only do I have the Hasties and the DeSantises and the Valentines and the guys like me, but then I got Tree Sherrick as my coach. It was perfect chemistry. It was perfect chemistry, what happened at that time right there. All I wanted to do was to be the coach at DeSales then. We're playing, and we're not beating Watterson. I mean, Johnny's team tied them, and then I think when I was a freshman, it was like 12-7 or something. I forget what the score was, but I knew then that something special was about DeSales, and I wanted to coach there. That's all I wanted to do was be the football coach at DeSales, because after my senior year, and I went on to Capital, Coach Slaughter kept asking me, you got to go back. You got to go back, you got to go back. And it was that whole DeSales thing. I think it was room 213 upstairs. We were juniors. And Nick Valentine said, we got to start lifting weights. Now, Mark and Bob and some of the other coaches in here, Mike Asbeck will know, in 1966, he said, we got to start lifting weights. Nobody lifted weights then. I don't know if Notre Dame lifted weights then. And we started lifting weights, and Nick lived on Eveline, and we went across the street, and we got some weights, and we learned some exercises, and did curls and benches and things like that. And I forget who said it in the video, but we got real close. We got real close, like that 78 team was talking up there. I forget if it was Simonello or who it was. And we weren't going to let Watterson beat us. We just weren't going to let Watterson beat us. And then, like I said in the video, we beat them. In 1968, we beat them, and I think we went up 6-0, and they came back 7-6, and the MO was that we were going to lose 7-6, and we drove right down the field and scored and beat Watterson. Now I graduate, and I think I have to come back here. It was always on my mind. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of DeSales. I don't think that I'll ever lose a game if I'm the coach at DeSales. That's the way I felt about this school. And they had a great coach. Mr. Sherrick was the coach. And then I went to Liberty Union, and Tom Walbacher was the coach. His son was, I think, for Bob, was an all-Ohio football player here. And Coach Walbacher was the coach. And I thought, you know what, even if I could just work for him, even if I could just work for Tom Walbacher, that would be awesome. And Pat Rossetti got me in here. I forget I was teaching health or phys ed or something, and now I'm the assistant coach for Tom Wallbacher. And I have to say something about Tom. I thought I knew something about football. We played in '68, went to Capitol, played college football, learned some stuff at Liberty Union. Tom Wallbacher told me what it was like to play big-time football. We talked about, or Bob talked about maybe the '85 team, kind of Pat did about taking off and going into the stratosphere with football. Tom taught me what it was like to be in the big time. He taught me what big-time football was like. And then Tom decided to give it up. Now, I've only been a coach for 2 years, and I can't tell you, I don't know if I can thank Pat Rossetti a million times if that'll be enough. I honestly don't know why he trusted me. I think why he trusted me, and I'll say this forever, is because he knows that I played for Tree Sherrick, and he knows that I went through the trenches, and he knows the guys who I played football for and with. And I think he thought, you know what, this is what it's going to take. What Trees say, the team with the past is the team of the future. You know, I had a past, and he thought maybe this is what it's going to be, and I am so indebted to him for giving me that job. And the video said it. I remember being in his office and going to the chapel, and I don't know how long I was in there. It might have been an hour. And I was so excited to be the head football coach at DeSales. So here I am now, and I'm the head football coach at DeSales. And what happens? Guys, football players, listen to me. John Hassett comes up to me and says, we need playbooks. Here, I'm a printer. We're going to do everything we can. I can't tell you how many people back then came to me and said, what can we do? What can we do for you? It's being a DeSales guy. And the same thing's happening now with some of the DeSales guys out in the crowd. Then Nick Valentine said, we need a weight room. Here we are in 1977, I think it was. And I says, well, you know, I don't know anything about a weight room. How are we going to build a weight room? He said, I'm the construction guy. Going back to what I said about Dad, construction people. So he got these guys together. He called me one day. He said, your room's going to be 40 by 40. And I know it's a lot bigger now, but I think the basic structure is still there. He said, your room's going to be 40 by 40. And I said, what do you say that for, Nick? He goes, because some building on Bryce Road just blew down, a tornado hit it, and insurance is paying for it, and we get to keep the roof. So they put the roof on the truck, and they drove the roof over here. That's how it happened. That's how that building started, a 40 by 40, because the insurance company paid for the roof, and what was he going to do with the roof? And he brought it over here. And then everybody started working. I don't think it cost us a penny, did it? But going back to the DeSales guys, who wanted football to be important around here, and it didn't cost us a penny, and they built it. And we started building that weight room. Something that I saw in the film when I tapped Coach Crabtree here, I said, is that linebacker still in that room in there, painted in the weight room? You guys, maybe some of you saw it when they were showing it on the video, but there's a linebacker painted in the weight room there. At one time it had these eyes on it, and we painted that back in the 70s, late 70s. And we told the guys then, the Mark Crabtrees who were playing and guys like that, we said, the guys who played here are watching you every time you step in this weight room. Every time you come in this weight room, those guys are watching you. You have to do something for them. And I know it's sunk in. You heard Mike talking about it in the video here. And so the whole time, we kept emphasizing that linebacker, and Ryan kept it in there, and I really appreciate it. Probably my wife's here. As a matter of fact, there's a state championship football banner up here someplace that I was part of in '85. She made the state finals before I did. She was a softball coach here. And Tom, where's Tom Newbert at? She's a little bit upset that she doesn't have her own banner. She just got a line up there that says 19-something for state runner-up. But I know, but she made sure she pointed that out, that it was just a line up there. But she made it before I did. She's done a lot of great things for me, obviously. Obviously, and anybody knows us knows that. Obviously, my daughter. The best thing she did was introduce me to Bob Jacoby. And you young guys know Coach Jacoby, and all the guys in between know Coach Jacoby. The best thing she did was introduce me to Bob Jacoby. And I'll say this while he's up there. You saw the video about Guido.
Bob's about a centimeter behind him in trust and loyalty. We had some big games over the years, and I don't think maybe twice did I say, let's do this or let's do that. I might have said, just get Johnny Dennis around the ball as much as you can, Bob, that's it. But it was Bob's defense, and I appreciated her doing that. And I'll say another thing too, Mr. Garrett especially, and Coach Wiggins. I am so fortunate that Coach Crabtree is with us every day. I'm with him the last 11 years. It is so neat, and you football players listen to this now, it is so neat to hear him say, I'll say, how's that linebacker, McKinney, or something like that. You know, he's tough, and he's fast, and he's smart, and he's a really good teammate, and then I'm waiting for the line, and he goes, he's like a DeSales guy. I hear that all the time. When we have a player who plays for the team, or who is physical, or might be a little undersized, you know, not as big as some of those other guys, he says he's like a DeSales guy. Coach Crabtree is probably DeSales' biggest supporter that I know, and I get to be around him every day, so it makes it really fun. And you know, September 13th, this is just, I don't know if this is off the subject or not, but, and I know most of you know this, but September 13th, Ohio State with Luke is playing Kent State with Paul Haynes. Are you kidding me? National television, Luke's a head coach as far as I'm concerned. Paul's a head coach. They're in these films. They're the salespeople. They're the head coach of big-time football. You think football was important around here, guys? They're the two head coaches of big-time universities, Division I football, and they're from DeSales. I don't know if that could happen that day. I don't think that'll happen. Maybe the whole season. The two guys who played football from the same high school will be coaching big-time football teams. So I'm going to finish up. First, I want to say I can't say. I wish every one of you guys in purple and white jerseys could be on a team with the guys that I coached. And you're sitting with them right now. And please make sure you shake their hands and get their name and make sure you know when they play. You see why they're here? Guys, they got families. They could be any place, and they're here because of you. Everybody's here because of you guys. They're not here for me and Guido. And Coach Gary could be doing other things. Coach Wiggins, they're here for you. You guys in the purple jerseys, there's guys sitting out there that paid their money and gave their time because they want to support you. And I wish you could play on their teams. I watched the video, and I kind of forgot where I was for a second watching those plays. Some of the runs, and the defenses, and the way they got around the ball, and the run at Ironton, and the run at Ohio State Stadium. And the neatest thing, I don't know if I told my wife or my daughter this driving over here today, but the neatest thing for me was on the state championship team, there was Blackburn and Grooms and DeSantis, and their dads all played here. And their dads played here. Now, a lot of us in here are parents. Do you think those dads were proud when they were watching their sons at the Horseshoe be the first team to go 14-0? And I was telling Antoinette today, I said, I'll never forget this sight. There's a lot of things I don't forget. But we just beat Orville, and we just won the state championship. And we're on the bus, and it was one bus at the time. Everybody was in one little bus, and we're going through the parking lot there at the Horseshoe, and there's Butch Blackburn, who, when I was a sophomore, he was a senior, and he was the toughest guy in the world I knew, just a great, tough football player. And his son was our offensive guard, and Butch saw me, and kind of like over there where Bob Jacoby is right now, and I saw Butch, and it gives me goosebumps to think of the look that was on his face. It was DeSales football. He played DeSales football, and now his son plays for DeSales football, and they just won a state championship. It's priceless, guys. It's priceless. And I know some of you guys, and Andrew, your family played here, and the Cuas and some of the other guys. It is priceless what these guys before did so you guys could be here tonight. And now I'll say this, and you talked about Watterson in the video. We're ready to go, Guido. Somebody tell me if he starts getting close to me here. I'll put this helmet on. So my first year as head coach, I let Mr. Rossetti down. I let him down. I was going to beat Watterson. I was going to win, and I was going to win maybe every game, but I was going to beat Watterson because I owed it to Mr. Rossetti. He trusted me. He went out on a limb. I don't know how old I was, 26 or whatever, and I was the head football coach of DeSales, and we lost 23-0. I can't tell you, I didn't have an answer. I was down, guys. We had beat by Watterson. I was going to be the guy. I was going to be the guy that Mr. Sherrick kind of complimented us on winning that first CCL championship, and the Valentines, and everybody came and said, come on, let's go. Let's get this started. Let's turn this around and beat Watterson. Pat says, Tony, you're the guy that's going to do it. And I lost the game. So it's around between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's a Sunday morning, about 10 o'clock, and I'm sitting at home. There's a knock at the door, and I'm saying, what is that? And here's Guido. And I'm not going to get choked when I talk about this. Here's Guido, and he's got a projector in his hand, and he's got the Watterson tape. We had that 16mm projectors back then, Andrew. And he had that tape in his hand in Watterson. And I said, Guido, what's up? And he goes, I'll leave out all the cuss words. And he said, we're going to beat Watterson next year. That's all he said. And I looked at him, and I took the projector. I says, come on, let's go. We went in the other room, and we got one of them, I don't know, a potato chip tray, you know, you put potato chips and stuff on, and we set the projector on, and it sat there for a year. And we put the film on, and we got out the notebook. Swear to God, I don't remember watching the tape that day. I kept looking at Guido, and I kept watching him watch the film, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? What is going on here? He comes on a Sunday morning between Thanksgiving and Christmas. He said, we're not going to lose to him. Remember that feeling I told you I had way back when I came to the sales and put the purple on? I saw Hassey, DeSantis, and them guys. That's when I felt. I felt that right then, that we are not going to lose to Watterson. We are not going to lose. It was in December. Then it was in January. Then it was in February. Then it was in March. And I forget which one of the guys in the film said it, but I think it was John Lawson. He said, we just believed him. We weren't going to lose. Mike Asbick said, we were not going to lose. So the season goes, and we beat St. Thomas Aquinas, and we beat New Philly. We lost to Westerville North. The next week they had an ineligible player. So this is the 78 team now. So we got that one. And then it was Hamilton Township, and it was Lancaster, and it was some of them other teams. Then it was the CCL teams, and then it was Watterson. And just for a minute that week, I said, this is what Guido was talking about back in December. And when we got it, and I was doubting it. It's been 10 years since we beat Watterson. And then I looked at him again. And then that week, and that look was on his face, the same one was in December. They are not going to beat us. And then I would look at Shirk, and Simonello, and Bernhardt, and Crabtree, and Nath, and DeZeller. And I would look at those guys, and I'd say, oh my gosh, we're not going to lose this game. We're not going to lose this game. They believed it, and he believed it. We score 7-0. Halftime, we're winning. They come down and score, and I said, okay, this is it. And I turn around, and he's screaming at the defense. And you know what he's yelling about? They weren't going to score. They weren't going to score again. He was yelling at them, why hadn't they scored yet? He was yelling at the defense, you guys haven't scored yet. Intercept the ball, or pick up a fumble, or do something. Why are you guys just playing defense? And I looked at our offensive guys, and they were going, yeah. Well, Guido's defense gets a turnover. The guys drive down the field. The kicker, Roy Burrell, who also Guido coached, kicks a field goal with a couple minutes left to go. We beat him 10-7. And then the next year, in the newspaper, they were saying that it won't happen again. It's going to be 10 more years. Well, Phil Callahan, Borges, and those guys beat them again. You know, remember at the beginning when I said to you that song that was at Uncle Johnny's funeral, and it said, Here I Am? I want you to think about this. Okay, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and I'm here speaking to DeSales football, and I told you a little bit about everything. Here I am. That's the hymn that was at the funeral. He stood at that door with that projector, and he said, Here I am. it was Coach Guido. Bob Jacoby, Mark Crabtree, Izzy Volpe, my dad, Coach Guido put me here. That one day when he stood at the door and he said, here I am, they're not going to beat us. I'll go to my grave saying that any good thing that happened to me at football or at DeSales is because of what he did that day. And he's like that for everybody. Here I am. He's like that for me. He's like that for the players then. And I'm going to sit down and say this to you. You guys have just heard about Mr. Sherry and heard about me going to see Brookhaven and Watterson. And you heard about the 78 team and the 85 team. This whole time, and Bob Jacoby's 3 state championships, and Coach Wiggins in the playoff, this whole time, he's been there. He has been there the whole time. Coach Sherry brought him from St. Augustine, Brian Harrison. He brought him from St. Augustine to handle you guys from St. Augustine because nobody else could. He said, we got to get Guido over here for the St. Augustine guy. Am I right or wrong? Thank you. It's been him. You guys hear that song sometime when they play it, Mr. Garrick, one of your masses. Here I am. All I'm saying to you is you got a lot of people here for you guys, and then there's going to be a time in a game, and I don't know, maybe it'll be the Watterson game. Maybe we're on the goal line, our backs are to the goal line. You got to look at each other and say, come on, run it my way. Or if you're on offense, you tell coach, run it over my position, left tackle. Run it my way. Here I am, guys. Remember that word. And if anybody in this room, besides the football team, if you guys don't go to a scrimmage or a game or a weight room and don't look at Guido and tap him, just, you know how they tap that sign at Notre Dame that says, play like a champion today? All you got to do is just tap him. Don't hit him hard because you know what might happen. Just play like a champion today like Notre Dame. Just when you walk by, players, and any of you people here today, if you get a chance to shake his hand, you ought to shake his hand. Mr. Garrick, I'm done. But here's what I'd like to do, and this is one thing I'm going to do for me tonight. If you all would, if you give me a standing ovation for Coach Guido Ricevuto.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Emerling, class of 1993. I played for Coach Jacoby and Coach Crabtree. You guys have been patient and sitting through a lot of talking tonight, so that the first thing I'm going to do is take this little speech I wrote and just rip it up. The reason I'm up here in front of you, we're trying to get Football Alumni Association off the ground. And there's forms out on the tables, there's forms in the back. We'd love it if you'd join our efforts in this endeavor and to continue this tradition here at DeSales. So with that, we're going to conclude the program and please enjoy the refreshments and what's left of the food and each other. Thanks for being here tonight.